Welcome to the weekly cybersecurity Sibary podcast. Have I changed it every single time we've gone, Brian?
Yeah, it's bi-weekly.
Bi-weekly. I'm just a hot mess. So welcome to the CatchMark Technologies Sibary bi-weekly cybersecurity podcast. I'm here with Brian Sibary. Brian, how you doing today?
Good.
That's the answer I'm going to get today. That's what I'm working with here, folks, is good. That's what we got today. Yeah. I think Courtney is not running through that door over there to tell me that something's wrong. So I think we might have gotten off without a hook today. What do you think, Brian? Knock on wood?
I mean, if we're launching a space shuttle, we're cruising right now.
We've blown up a couple rockets, that's for sure. So welcome back to all of our viewers and audience, and we're here to talk about cybersecurity items and things that go on in the business world and the home world. Just really be a beacon of cybersecurity knowledge for you. I'm Brent Raeth. I'm a cybersecurity professional for the last 20-ish years, in the managing partner at CatchMark, and I'm here with Brian, who is our cybersecurity director at CatchMark and has been doing this now for 12 years, something like that.
13 years, yeah.
13 years. And so today we'd really like to talk about
ransomware.
So Brian, why don't you give us a little background and just a heads up on what ransomware actually is at its guts?
Yeah, so we've talked throughout the different series in a variety of different cyber attacks that happen and phishing, and we've talked about password complexity, and today we want to spend some time kind of leading up to this ransomware. Ransomware is malicious software that may, in fact, get downloaded to your computer, look to encrypt your files, give attackers access to your environment where they can go around and search for valuable data, and give them the ability to crypt that data, and then hold that data encrypted before providing you a key before you pay a ransom to pay a dollar amount to get that key to encrypt your data. And again, what we see now is it's not just them encrypting your data, but in the process they may exfiltrate your data and then hold it and say, if you don't pay the ransom, we're going to release it.
So they're basically cyber squatters.
Yeah.
They you've got a rental.
Mm-hmm.
They don't want to leave. They're squatting in it, and you can't get rid of them until you pay them.
They might.
Until you pay them.
Right. They might leave.
They might leave.
Yeah.
So they're cyber squatters.
Yeah.
So, I mean, what are some of the trends you've seen with ransomware? I know the ransoms have gone up over the years. It used to be really low. Now they're starting to be more expensive. More
expensive, more costly, and then more frequent, right? And
so
just kind of looking at some stats prior to coming in here, and in 2021, they figured globally there was 20 billion lost to ransomware attacks. By 2024, it's going to double up to a little more than double, up to 42 billion. They figure, and by 2030, 265 billion.
Are we in the wrong business?
If you spent your time just in ransomware recovery.
No, I mean maybe we should be. Yeah. No, I'm just kidding. So $44 billion is what they're saying.
Just a 13% increase between 2020 and 2021. So again, that just keeps compounding, and I mean, obviously these statistics are scary, but that's the reality we're facing is becoming and we've talked in previous podcasts, becoming a cyber criminal today is easier than it's been as well, because that in itself has become its own business model on the dark.
Right. They'll do it as a service. Yeah. You can hire somebody to hack for you, basically.
Basically set it all up and you hit the go button. So
yeah. So one of the trends as well is that I would say overall the ransomware folks have gotten bolder. Mm-hmm. And what I mean by that is when it first started out, it was, hey, we got your computer, pay us $600, $500, $100. And that turned into a little bit bigger and a little bit bigger. So some of the recent notable ransomware attacks that we've had are on the scale of just a really massive amount of dollars in people affected. So a couple that come to mind is the WannaCry ransomware attack in 2017. 200,000 computers across 150 companies were affected. It cost from hundreds of millions to billions of dollars worldwide. They're not quite sure exactly, but they know it was measured in hundreds of millions, possibly billions. It was only stopped because a security researcher accidentally discovered a kill switch in the ransomware's code. So imagine that 200,000 computers across 150 countries were affected by this. It's effectively shut down and not been able to use those devices.
Yeah.
Of course, everybody heard about in 2021, the Colonial Pipeline, one of the largest fuel lines in the United States, hit by a ransomware attack carried out by the dark side cyber criminal group. The attack forced the company to shut down its pipeline operations for 7 days, leading to fuel shortages and spikes in fuel prices across the United States or eastern United States.
And we see it in cities, in schools, in food sectors.
So that's the next one I was going to go to. 2018, the city of Atlanta, Georgia was hit with a ransomware attack known as SamSam. The attack encrypted critical systems, causing significant disruption to city services, including the judicial system, bill payment systems, airport Wi-Fi. Always important, airport Wi-Fi, right? The attackers demanded a ransom of approximately $51,000 in Bitcoin, but it's unclear if the city paid the ransomware. If it's unclear, I'm going to assume they paid it. Because if they didn't, they would just say they didn't.
Yeah, I would say that as well. And like you said, the ransom has gone up, but it's something to keep in mind too that they do want you to pay. So, if you're a part of one of those situations, and
if you got the $51,000 to pay it and drop it in.
No, I was saying that when they, part of their attack is to do some discovery and figure out, again, what do you have? What is it of value to you? And
so that Atlanta attack took several weeks to recover, even after whatever they did, paid or whatever. And they estimate that it cost the city almost $2.6 million.
Yeah. So,
some of the statistics I pulled up as well, just for ransomware.
No, that's a good point you bring up. It's not just the cost of what you may pay.
Yeah,
it's the cost of the downtime. And
so I had a customer that experienced this, and I'm going to leave them unnamed.
Yeah.
The ransom was paid, but the recovery was still very, very difficult, right? They give the decryption key, but then there's all kinds of fallout after that, right? You have to clean the systems, you have to sanitize it, you basically wipe it and recover it once you get access back to it and rebuild it. In that scenario, all the permissions for the entire file share that was encrypted were all messed up, so you had to basically go back and reconstitute all the groups and the whole 9 yards.
Yeah.
So just to add some statistics to kind of what you were going with the cost of ransomware. The ransomware frequency in 2021, a ransomware attack occurred approximately every 11 seconds, an increase from every 40 seconds in 2016. Average ransom payment in 2020 was $233,817, and that was up from 2019 where it was $41,000. Since the COVID-19 pandemic, 47% of organizations worldwide experienced a ransomware attack due to an increase in remote work. So, that people working from home and not having maybe some of the same cybersecurity practices at home.
Or just being a part of the culture, right? We talk about a functioning cybersecurity program is about culture. And when people are at home, they, forget about things and you don't get the training you need. And
Yeah. Downtime in Q4 of 2020, the average downtime resulting from a ransomware attack was 21 days. With an additional...
That's longer than I thought.
Than you thought, yeah. With an additional 8 days needed to restore systems fully. So if, they're back up in 21, but they're not, they're clunking. Somebody's down for longer.
Somebody's over, yeah.
So, I think the key thing here is that it's happening. It's happening in a big way, and it's a huge impact. If you're a business owner out there and you happen to come around our podcast, could you do without your business IT systems for 21 straight days? I would say short of, the gas station owner out in the middle of nowhere that does everything with a card swipe still and cash. Yeah. You're paying your employees electronically. You're processing customer payments electronically. You're managing your books electronically. You're the
IT is so ingrained in everything that we do.
Yeah. And so most businesses are cash based. So if you're not getting paid and you're not and you're not able to pay people, like, do you have enough cash to weather a month-long storm? I mean, we saw that a little bit with COVID where all that stuff went away and restaurants were shutting down right and left, right? Like, so, we're not here to be the scary cybersecurity guys. We've talked about that before. We've done a good job of that so far in the beginning of this, but, so what are some things? So we've established, okay, this is happening. It's happening bigger. It's only escalating. It could ruin your business. It could ruin your personal life, even possibly. What are some ways you can protect yourself from ransomware? What are some things that people can do?
So, you've heard me drop the term, and we always talk about it, having a functioning cybersecurity program in place. So what does that mean, right? So you've got the policies, the processes in place, you've trained your people, you've got technical configurations in place, but the things that you really want to address are making sure as a part of that effort that you have a process to patch your systems.
Right.
Close the security loopholes inside of software that we use or systems that we use. You want to make sure that you have...
Do you mind if I interject there?
Go ahead.
So I've heard many, many people in my life talk about how they don't update their phone or they've got to. Everybody out there.
An inconvenience probably at the time.
Yeah. Patches are, I know they can break features. I know they don't always work exactly the way they were designed to work, but they're coming out to plug holes. They're coming out to lock the doors and windows of stuff that's out there. If you don't patch them, you're in a dangerous place and you're leaving your windows open and the garage door open and the back fence open. You're asking for something to happen. Yeah. So, but you keep going, Brian. Sorry about that.
And then as part of that program, having antivirus, anti-malware, and an EDR solution in place. So,
what does EDR stand for?
So, endpoint detection and response, and not only having those things in place, but checking on them. We check frequently to make sure that those pieces of software themselves are getting the updates they need.
That's funny because I've helped a lot of people with their computers over the years, and I cannot tell you how many. I would say probably 70 or 80% of the time, I'll say something like, "Do you have antivirus?" Yeah. Symantec's running on it, or Norton's running on it, and I go down there and the icon's on, and it's got a red circle with a line through it, and sure, it's on there, but it's not up to date. You haven't paid the subscription. It's not doing anything that it's supposed to do. So antivirus, anti-malware, EDR. What else?
Yep. Having some other security tools in place. We talk a lot about phishing, and that's a vehicle where a lot of ransomware attacks are launched from. So having an email filtering system in place to help, block some of that traffic before it ends up in your mailbox and you make a false click on something. We talked today with a customer about tailoring their firewalls, implementing rules to block certain countries, to block certain ports. That's all part of the process.
So just on that comment, and this might be overkill. At home, I do that. Right. So I block China. I block Russia.
You don't want anything?
I don't want anything from China or Russia. There's nothing I need from China.
Cheered today. Our customer cheered that you could do that. Yay.
Yeah. So the only things I get from China are things I order on Amazon. So I don't need any ransomware from China. But I mean, that's all there for sure. Yeah. Okay.
I'd say another important one is making sure you have a good backup plan for the data that is important to your company. So. What does that mean? Well, what's your frequency you're going to run your backups? And most times, we work in O365 environments for most of our customers. It's very tailorable. And it also being in a cloud environment, you're backing up your data off-site. So if you do have physical servers and computers in a location, consider backing that information up off-site. We do offer that for some of our customers as well. And then encrypting that backup is a good idea, right? So if a ransomware attack were to happen and cyber criminals are in your network, in your system, can they find the backups and corrupt your backups or steal that information as well?
That's funny. I had a customer a couple of years ago. They came to us through a mutual business acquaintance, and they had been hit by ransomware. And a lot of modern ransomware attacks, the ransomware is the attack out the door. They're leaving. So it's like they've squatted, they've stolen all your mail and all your credit cards. They've gathered all their data. They know who you are, how old you are, where you live, what your social security number is. And then on the way out the door, they put a bomb with a switch on it. And they say, I need another 100K or I'm blowing this place up. And that's basically what happened to this customer. And not only that, the system that was built to protect them, the backup system, some of the stuff, while they were inside, they disabled it all. Mm-hmm. So they killed the alarm system. They muzzled the guard dog. They disabled backups. They corrupted the backups on purpose so that when they did say, pay me my money, this person this organization had no recourse. They couldn't recover because their backups had been corrupted. So I bring that up because, like, not only is it important that you do some of those things, but it's also important that you check that there's some kind of checklist, which is one of the things. Again, this is a CatchMark show, so that's one of the things we do as part of what our technicians do. We have a monthly checklist, a monthly maintenance checklist. We look through that stuff. We make sure those things are functioning correctly as they go, because oftentimes people fire and forget and they don't realize it, or they ignore the emails, or the email doesn't get to them because it hasn't been set up correctly. So, yeah. So keep going, Brian. Sorry to interrupt you and take us on a tangent.
No, that's all good stuff. Yeah, and then do a test of the backup, make sure it restores, and then go through that process, because again, when a ransomware attack were to happen, if it were to happen to your, company or organization, it's going to be like hairs on fire, right? It's like, you want to be able to have a plan in place to help calm the waters and think clearly and quickly restore.
How important is two-factor?
Yeah, I was going to say we were getting to that. So again, some of the things that we've talked about, right, is our authentication methods, right? Having complex passwords, using multi-factor authentication when available, and then training your users. Again, I had mentioned phishing is one of those vehicles where a lot of the ransomware is delivered or attempt to create the cyber attack. So making sure you're training your users, educating them continuously on identifying those types of one that I had on my list was restrict user permissions. Mm-hmm. And I actually mentioned this at a customer site this morning. The aforementioned, the very first example I gave of ransomware, the organization was running what we call open. And so basically, it was a small organization. There's only 10 people in it. There wasn't anything that they were hiding. There was one folder protected. That was the owner's folder, right? Yeah. Everything else, everybody else could get into and see. Well, what happened was when that ransomware kicked off, every user had rights to the entire file share. Yeah. So when it was executing things, and they may not need it, right? And so, but basically they had keys to every door inside the building, and they didn't need it. So once that bad actor stole those keys, they had access to every single room, and it encrypted the entire share versus maybe hit a couple folders or hitting a stop point because the keys only opened a certain door, right? And so, again, just some of those things. That was one of them that I had on my list as well. But you were mentioning education. How important is user education? Oh yeah, and it's not. Sometimes we talk to customers. We've provided education. Maybe it was 2-3 years ago, right? We always recommend a continuous and yearly at a minimum, but just continuously talking about these things, creating that culture, having posters and flyers, maybe at the lunchroom fridge, to just keep on the forefront. I know a lot of our customers, we constantly are running phish simulations to allow them to practice and recognize. And it's funny when I walk into the lunch area where we're at, people walk up, "Yo, you got me the other day," and I said, "Oh, which one was it?" It wasn't me, right? But which one was it? And they wanted me to change my password, and I clicked on it. And I said, well, the good thing is next time someone asks you to change your password like that through an email, you're going to think twice, and you're going to ask questions, and you're going to make those clicks, and you're going to, it's going to already raise the red flag as a warning for you to be careful.
So, I mean, we're all IT people here. Mm-hmm. We've all done it for a long time, and Brian just put out our our cybersecurity training. We just had 2 modules we had to review, and that's me included. I mean, I've been doing cybersecurity for 20 years now, and I went through the module, and it's just good to get a reminder of that stuff. Yeah. It's good to look at it. And one of the things I think you want to remove from the equation when you're training or when you're doing phish simulations, there's no shame, right? Like this is all about you guys as the user, us as the users getting better. And so if we fall for it, like you said, you want to make those mistakes in practice, not in the game.
Yeah, and that's what I told this individual. I think they kind of were like, oh, and I'm like, no, that's a good thing that you were able to have that opportunity to learn from that experience.
Okay. So we talked a little bit about some of the things we can do to maybe help mitigate the risk of ransomware and some of those things happening. What do we do if we do get hit with ransomware? I mean, like what are kind of the steps?
Yeah, one of the things you want to do is make sure you have an incident response plan documented, right? Again, as I'd mentioned, when this type of attack happens, you're going to have a lot of anxiety with the situation. There's going to be a lot of moving parts. Having something documented to kind of help you respond and recover from an incident is important. But if you're a person who unfortunately gets that
bad email
pop up, or hey, we got your data. No, they're going to give you the directions and who to call and who to talk to. They're going to be nice about that, right?
Yeah.
So they get paid. But I would say the first step would be to unplug from the network. Don't shut the computer off. I say don't shut the computer off because you're going to want to work with your IT to gather some data.
So I just want to. So I've looked this up before the meeting, and Brian didn't know I was going to ask this question. He's going blind right now. The very first answer that I had written down, just to make sure, isolate the affected systems, disconnect the infected device from the network to prevent ransomware from spread to others, disable Bluetooth, disable Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Yep.
All right, let's see. You're 1 for 1. Let's see, B.
And then contact your IT department and start to work with them so that they can start to do, perform some analysis on the situation, collect the data they need to start making the next steps forward. And they're going to look into and see where potentially the attacker is gone within the network. Did you unplugged, but that doesn't mean that it stopped them, right? They may, like you said,
they may already be somewhere
on the way out. And so they're going to start looking at the backups, and they're going to start looking at the systems that may have been accessed. They're going to look at your access. Where can you go, right? Where can you travel within the network? And then they're going to start looking at, so if you have a cybersecurity insurance policy, you're going to contact those people and get them involved. A lot of times your cybersecurity insurance policy, which we talked about last week, they have teams that will assist as well.
Yeah. And they might give you working capital to make it through the 21 days that you're down, right?
Or to bring in and have the restore, assistance that you may need. And then you're going to start that restore effort, and a part of this would be to contact local authorities and whether they can help or not, but allowing them to be a part of the process, and maybe they potentially can glean enough data to try to track them down, to try to.
If I didn't know any better, I would say you're a cybersecurity professional. Did pretty good, Brian. So number 1, isolate the affected system. Yeah. Number 2, try to identify the ransomware. That's getting your IT folks involved and figure out what you're dealing with.
Yep.
Number 3, report the incident. So you hit that one on the head. Evaluate your options. I think that's part of talking to your IT people that you kind of mentioned.
Yep.
What are the things you can do? Are there free decryptors out there? How can you react to this?
Yep.
Remove the ransomware. I don't think you specifically mentioned that, but I think that's assumed in the IT role, right? Is to get rid of it. You wouldn't be doing that yourself.
No, the IT teams are going to be scanning systems. They're going to be looking for it, hunting it down. And
data restoration. So if you don't, and again, I don't think there's any shame in paying the ransom. I think that's a business decision.
Did I say grab your wallet? Was that one of them?
You did, yeah. But like restoring your data, because again, in certain circumstances, if you've got a daily backup and you lose a day's worth of work, if you're a 300 person organization and the ransom is 10 grand, I'm pretty sure you probably put more in salary for 300 people in a day than you did in that 10 grand. Have them down another day is going to cost you more than just pay the ransom and recover. So there is a bit of a business decision there. I know the authorities out there would say, don't ever pay them. I know like the fight in you says, don't pay them. I don't want these people to get my money, right? Like, but there is a business decision to be made, but restore your data. And then the last one is take a look at what happened and strengthen your defenses.
Start doing after action.
Get better. Like, okay, what do we do? Okay, if this happens again, our backups are weekly. We would have lost a week's worth of work because it happened on a Friday. Maybe those backups need to be daily, right? And start investing in some of those things to help protect that. Maybe this was a user training issue. And so those are kind of the recovery options. And Brian, you did pretty darn good, man. Like that's pretty good. I'm cheating over here, and you did a great job. So, like, have you ever been a victim of ransomware?
I have not.
Not personally?
No, personally, I have not been a victim of ransomware.
Have you ever been a victim of cybercrime? An attempted last year, right?
Yeah, I had an attempt. I was trying to think. They didn't steal anything. Well, I did have somebody open. So
like an identity theft kind of thing.
Yeah. So they opened up an account at Bank of America, and Sunday morning, I just happened to get in to my personal email and saw the traffic coming in. Like, hey, here's the code you requested from Bank of America. Here's, you changed your contact information. Your account's been created. Oh, your account's been created. You change your contact information. So there was like 4 emails in a row. Bang, bang, bang. They set up an account and then changed some information, and then we're out the door. And so I quickly called Bank of America, and they jumped on it. And now I said, hey, what prevents this from happening again? And they said, well, now we flagged your name and social security number. And if anybody calls in, including you, it's not so easy as to just go online. There's going to be more questions and more scrutiny.
So I've seen personally, so if this happens to you, if ransomware does still happen at a personal level, typically what you'll see is some kind of flash screen on your computer. It's going to pretend like it's going to try to create urgency. It's going to try to freak you out. Sometimes they pretend like they're the FBI and they say, we know what you've been looking at and you got to pay the ransom if you don't want it leaked. Sometimes they're just going to encrypt your data and but just if you're a home user and you have that stuff happen to you, the FBI is not in the business of notifying you in the way that you write on your desktop or write on your laptop, right? Like that's just not going to happen. If you're doing something you shouldn't be doing, they're coming in your door, right, with badges. Yeah. So they're not going to let you know, and they're not going to do anything like that. But just be savvy with that. So I've seen a few people where that's happened. That's the kind of the common gimmick. I had a account. I think it was my Steam account or one of my Activision accounts. Somebody from China hacked my account. I don't know whether it was a leaked password. They got compromised from some other system. And they took over my account and I couldn't get into it. So they had access to all the games I ever bought. And so it's a funny story because I went through the whole process. It was a pain in the butt. Mm-hmm. Took me like 2 days, 3 days to get back access to my account. I had to prove my identity and that whole thing. I put 2-factor authentication on it and I watched 2-factor requests come in for like 3 weeks after that.
Yeah.
They're still trying to get into my account, right, so... Again, it's a scary place out there, and there are some bad actors out there. But if you follow some just common sense approaches, I think you can keep your business organization, your nonprofit, your schools, your churches, yourself safe, and really in a good place in regards to cyber hygiene. So, Brian, any last words as we reach the half-hour mark?
No, that's all I got.
That's all you got today?
Yep.
Well, I want to thank everybody for joining us on the CatchMark CatchMark Sibary Cybersecurity Bi-Weekly Podcast. I am Brent Raeth, and this is Brian Sibary, and we just want to remind you to stay cyber safe.
Yeah.
And we'll talk to you in a couple weeks.
Enjoy the sun.